I spent quite a lot of time in my youth going to the Royal Easter Show. I guess many of you did when it was at Moore Park. I used to love the sideshows. I love that. I've got a whole series of films on my website, all free. There's a 20-minute one on Sideshow Alley. It's with all the freaks and whatever. It's sort of quite weird. There was one I remember called Xena and her performing Fleas. She had a flea circus, and she used to advertise it that these little fleas, you'd look through this big glass microscope, and supposedly these fleas were riding bicycles and lifting dumbbells and square dancing and so forth. Buggered if I could see that, but she said that she got all the fleas from the King's Cross Flea Pit, the picture theatre up there in those days, and she said, and they're just very difficult to train. And I used to sort of laugh at that, the fleas at Madame Zena's flea place. You know, the sideshows always amazed me. There was a lot in the bush, and they'd do anything to get a quid. There was one man who used to charge a shilling, and he had a big sign on the tent saying, "Come into the tent, 1 shilling, and you'll see the biggest mug in Australia." And you'd pay your shilling and you'd go in, and there was a big mirror there. Yeah. Oh, another one used to have sort of oddities. Like one had this skull of Ned Kelly, and he said, "Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the skull of Ned Kelly." And some shearer looked at it and he said, "Mate," he said, "that's too small to be Ned Kelly's skull." Because you know Ned Kelly's head got stolen, the skull got stolen from the police museum in Victoria. Anyway, he said, "It's too small to be Ned Kelly's head." And the showman looked at it and he said, "Yes, but this is Ned Kelly as a young man." Fleas, yes. You know, we play a little bit of dance music. I was recording Mrs. Colley up in Bathurst in 1973, and she was telling me about a tune called the varsovienna, a lovely, pretty tune, and well, she called it the arse over Anna. But you know, it reminded me that in the old days of the dances they had, the band used to get away with murder. They'd play a tune. They all had dirty words to all these tunes to remind them of the tune. And of course, once the microphones were introduced, they had to stop all that. Anyway, this is what Mrs. Colley did, this thing called Fleas. There's a flea over here and a flea over there. There's a flea over here